listening to Paul Anderson. This is the Sideshow Podcast.
And welcome to this episode of the Sideshow PC. I am your host, as always, Paul Anderson. And this week, I'm actually really excited for the show. Like any other show, I'm stoked for this one because I'm luckily enough joined by Nick Diener of the band The Swellers. And The Swellers, to me, is a band that I've been luckily enough to see live. They ran from 2002 to 2015. And I couldn't be more excited to have their front man, Nick Diener. Nick, how you doing, buddy?
Dude, I'm doing all right, man. I'm eating creamy broccoli soup and some bread that I made, and I'm just feeling good, man.
Nice. Dude, you got hooked up.
Dude, do you want to hear a fun fact, though, that everybody gets wrong? My last name's actually pronounced like Wiener, so it's actually Diener.
Diener? Oh, man, I fucked that up bad.
Yeah, dude. It's German, man. Like, you got to get hip with the German lingo.
Oh, man. Diener. Okay, I'm sorry. My apologies. I should have.
Oh, dude, no problem, man. Like, when we had, what was it called? Telemarketers and stuff calling our houses when we were younger. Yeah. Like, it was constantly Diner or like Denier or anything but the real thing. So I've heard it all, man. It's all good.
They butcher that when you're in high school and whatnot.
Oh, dude, yeah, like attendance and everything. And I mean, elementary school was terrible. Having my first name and my last name rhyme with male genitalia. that was tough for a minute, but.
Oh man, I love it. So, dude, it's been a minute. I mean, you've been really. You've been on this little, I'm calling it mini retirement, because like I said in the beginning, the Swellers ran from 2002 to 2015, and you guys definitely closed that chapter on your own terms, which I think is always a really positive thing coming from any band.
Oh, cool.
So, tell me a little bit about that. I mean, the Swellers are just something that, I mean, if listeners haven't heard of you guys, definitely go check them out. I highly suggest it for sure. But yeah, tell me a little bit about the Swellers. I mean, what they meant to you obviously being their front man for such a long time. You and your brother were both original members.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things. We were in high school, and my brother and I were in a couple of, bands that played things like talent shows and little pep rally type things, and that only lasted for a couple of months. And we turned to each other, and my brother and I, we were like, okay, let's quit the band we're in, and we got to start writing our own songs. And then, we didn't have anybody to really show us the way until we became a part of like the Flint music scene, and there were some older punk bands, and apparently we were really good for being really young. Like, we were really tight. And we kind of just, we came off older than we were. So a lot of the bands were like, okay, cool, you're cool. We'll take you under our wing, play on our shows. Hey, don't talk as much between songs. Do this, do that, and it really helped us in the long run, looking, whatever it is, like 15 years later now. The Flint scene kind of helped sculpt us. And, we had ideas of, hey, let's get in our van and let's go play a bunch of shows in a row. And we were like 14 and 15 talking about that, and like we pretty much thought we invented touring. We were like, oh, that'd be such a good idea, we should do that.
That's insane.
And turns out that's what we ended up doing. Kind of like asked our parents, hey, we're going to take a year off, like we're not going to go to college for this year, we're going to see how things go. And they knew that this was our this was our calling, like this was our passion, and we just kind of had to do it. Had some good opportunities, but yeah, that 1 year on the road turned into 10 pretty fast. So like looking back on it now, it's like, man, my entire 20s were spent on the road, and any time spent home was very, very negligible, like maybe a month at a time tops. So it was always just like never unpacking the suitcase, and a lot of our gear kind of just stayed in cases. We didn't practice. We just basically, the first show of tour was band practice, and then we went from there.
Well, that's awesome. So, like you said, 1 year turned into 10, and the Swellers have, like you said, you've had some pretty good opportunities along the way. Can you tell me a little bit about some of those opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, when we started kind of selling out our local venue in Flint when we were really young, and we just thought that was awesome. And then we, started going on tour like a year or two later, and we realized that not everywhere was going to be a sold out crowd. We were playing to 2 people, 3 people here and there. And after 2 straight years of self-booked tours, we had some bands that wanted to take us out. So we had like Streetlight Manifesto take us out on a couple tours. Our good friends in a
awesome.
Wilhelm Scream, those are Massachusetts dudes. I filled in playing bass and then playing guitar on 2 different tours for them. And so they definitely were like the next step in showing me the ropes. So like the Flint bands taught us kind of how to be a band. A Wilhelm Scream taught us how to tour. Like they were like the road warriors, and I picked up a lot of what we learned just from those guys. And and then soon after that, 2009 rolled around. We ended up signing with Fueled by Ramen Records, which was kind of a move a lot of people didn't see us about to make. It was kind of like the pop label. But out of all the other labels that wanted to sign us, we were going to be one of a bunch of bands on those other labels that signed. But with Fueled by Ramen, they were like, you're going to be the only band we sign all year. And we were like, man, that's actually pretty cool. We're going to get some extra special attention. And, we did and we didn't. So there was kind of, some give and take there. But we had an overall really good experience. And it just ended up staying on tour just more and more and more, moving up in the slots a little bit. Like we were opening tours and we were playing second and we were playing third. So we pretty much just made baby steps the entire time. And at the end there, we were just kind of like, all right, let's do one last year. We don't want to see this band crash and burn. We just kind of want to have a good time. And if you missed us or whatever, we kind of just want you to be like, oh crap, I should have been there. And instead of just, people remembering us as, oh, that band, they tried so hard for like another 10 years and, nobody liked them anymore. We didn't want to be those guys. So, plus, we had things coming up like family and jobs, and we were just kind of like, all right, let's try real life and try to be humans for once.
Now, how is it? Now on the other side of the coin, pretty much as kind of like a Domesticated, man. I mean, just being home, it must kind of be nice to at least have that stability to be able to, you don't have to worry about prepping for tour or what the next record you're writing for or pleasing a label and whatnot. It must be very satisfying to at least take a minute to yourself and obviously to your wife, spending time there. That must be a very good feeling, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, the first year or so was like, this is perfect. It's like I get to actually sleep in my own bed and, do all that cliche stuff. But luckily I get to work in music pretty much every day for my job. I'm an engineer, producer, studio guy, and I have a studio out of my house called Oneder Studios. So at least once or twice a month, I have a different band coming in and we're working on a couple songs, EPs, full lengths, whatever. So it's cool getting to put my hand into their band and, just kind of be like, their 4th or 5th or 6th band member. And, just getting to take all the knowledge that I've learned minus all the pressure of it being my band. It's actually like a really fulfilling thing. And then, of course, because I have the studio, it was like, all right, well, I should probably start another project because I have a bunch of microphones and amps and guitars, so I got to do it. So I started a new band called The Apology Tour, and at first it was kind of like a solo project thing, but full band because, that's all I know how to do. I'm not really acoustic guy. I don't really know how to do that. I just like big loud amps and stuff. So I got like my two best friends, Mark and Michelle, in Chicago, and they play drums and bass. And we just finished our record. We got like the last mixes and masters back, which is kind of cool because I recorded and mixed it myself, and then Mark, our drummer, mastered it. So yeah, kept it all in house, and hopefully we'll get that out sometime this year. It's just nice to have a creative outlet and also an excuse to go play shows with my friends in Chicago. And I get to go 5 hours and actually spend some time with them, which is really nice.
Now, with this new band that you're talking about, now is it going to be a different, completely like 360 sound from what's going on, what you were doing with the Swellers, or is this going to be something that's more or less just like a whole new sound where it's just like, as an artist, you can devote your time into that? You obviously, you had your bread and butter with the Swellers, so is it something that like you're trying to change up a little bit, or is this along the same idea, just different people?
I think it's, if you're familiar with the Swellers, you'll be like, oh, that's totally a Nick song. Like I have a way of writing melodies, but sonically it actually sounds very different. So it's all baritone guitars, so they're tuned to pretty much like Korn tuning. It's like Slipknot style crushing heavy guitars, but playing like a melodic, sludgy pop kind of music. And it's also a lot slower. Yeah. Like it's almost painfully slow at times, but that was the point. It's almost harder to be tight as a band when you're really slow than it is really fast, kind of like the Swellers were at times. And then also just, we didn't have anything holding us down, or there was no preconceived notion of what we were supposed to sound like. So I'm like, well, sweet, I'm going to play this guitar tuned in A standard, which is halfway to a bass guitar. And then I'm going to play a Moog synthesizer. So there's actual keys. It's just real weird, like little synth leads and things like that. And then Michelle, the bass player, she sings quite a bit with me in unison or harmonies or whatever. And I don't know, girl vocals have always been kind of like one of my favorite sounds in music. So I was like, oh, that's so cool. We get to,
I agree,
incorporate that. And yeah, so I mean, if I had to say it sounded like anything, I'd say it's like Failure and Weezer and maybe like Torch, just kind of big, heavy down-tune pop tunes. And it's it's some of my favorite stuff. And then there's like one song that's kind of like electro sounding and kind of crushing and just really sad overall, soft spoken at times. So yeah, I'm excited to put it out and play some shows. Like, we have no expectations of who's going to get to hear it or how many shows we're even going to play. It's just a good excuse to, I guess when you have a release, it's like, okay, now this is why we play shows. Let's go do it. So
there's like so there's like no worries of like, pretty much starting over from where the Swellers were. Like you said, there's no expectations.
Right.
There's just having fun and finding that.
It's just, it is insanely hard though. I thought, the Swellers have sold something like 30,000 records and, toured for 10 years. I thought that it would be a little bit easier to like maintain that fan base and the notoriety or whatever you want to call it. Like, I thought if we sent it out to, record label A and record label B, they would be like, oh, this is your new thing? Like, here's a bunch of money. Let's do it. But even the smallest labels are just like so busy right now with other bands, and it's people paying out of their pocket for to put out vinyl, to put out CDs, whatever, distro. So it's like you can't blame them, man. It's like, people are saying that people have heard my record, they say they love it, and I'm glad, but they're just like, man, I don't know what I can do to help you. But at the same time, it's like, man, I don't know what we even want. Like, do we even want to put this out on vinyl? Like, do we want a label? Like, we don't even know. So it's really easy kind of moving on from another band in like the creative sense, but like the actual business side of things and strategy, it's like, man, I have no idea how to do that stuff. Like, I guess it's because I don't care, this time I just want to go out and have fun. And that's like if the Swellers ever got back together to play shows, it'd be like strictly to have a good time. And of course, it'd be awesome to get paid, for for doing that.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. But if I think after the Swellers were done, I realized how much of a toll it took on me being stressed out on the road and stressed out about numbers and money. So I don't want that in my life anymore at all. I just want to play music and have a good time, pretty much.
Now, were you were you managing yourself? Like, were you guys your own manager, or did you have somebody else out there?
We had a manager for quite a few years. It started off great, and then kind of went downhill from there, to the point where after we fired him, and we were kind of like, I think we have to be done. And of course, you're usually when you have a manager, you become really good friends. You become close. You call him for no reason. You talk about stuff. He wasn't like a suit or anything. And after that, I never talked to him again. Like, I reached out a couple times for some, bank account information or something, but nothing. So it's like, that's kind of weird. I think they took it personally, which, it's kind of hard not to. But yeah, we kind of started, self-managing, I guess, after that. And we also did it before then. And it's a bigger workload and everything, but it's also frustrating as kind of, I guess you can call me like the chief songwriter of the band. My brother has a really, really big part in it, but, it's coming out of my face. Like, I'm the one in front of the microphone. So it's like, if things don't go well, I felt like it was all on me. If other bands that were once opening for us are now playing to like 4,000 people, it's like, it's so hard to not, I guess, be envious. Like, we were never that band that would like talk crap about a band for getting big. Like, we were always super stoked about that, because it's like, I can't believe a grungy ass bunch of punk kids can make that much money and do that kind of stuff. That's amazing. But, at the same time, we're sitting here like, oh crap, why wasn't it us? Like we were really tight. We were really good at playing our songs. Our choruses rule. Like, what's the problem? So it was hard to get out of that mindset, especially when you're kind of like tired and driving, sleeping on people's floors. Like, we weren't a hotel band. We didn't do hotels. I think a lot of people thought we were a lot bigger than we were, which is cool. Like, it's sweet, if they had like I guess, delusions of grandeur about our band, because I think that turned some people on to us. But, if you came and saw one of our headliner shows, like, we've had so many of our fans just be like, hey, what's the deal? Why'd you play such a small venue? And we're like, yeah, this is kind of just what we do. If they saw us play with like Paramore or something with 3,000 people, and then they would see us play to like 33 in, Tulsa, Oklahoma or something.
And some people are usually trying to wrap their head around it, but
yeah,
that was just the reality.
Yeah, and I was the same way when I saw a band called the Sloppy Meat Eaters play when I was 15. They played in Flint, and in my head, they were this band that played to like 1,000 people everywhere they went. And, there was probably 30 people at the show. And I asked the singer, I'm like, hey, dude, where is everybody? Why are you playing here? And he was just kind of like, this is how it is, man. This is punk rock. And, like, that was, like, a big lesson to me. I was like, all right, I better be prepared for this kind of thing. And we definitely faced that quite a bit.
Huh. I like it. Let's talk a little. Let's move into a little bit about your producing. One of the questions I thought of today was, what are some of the different challenges? Being a producer compared to when you were like the one being produced. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you were working with producers, are you seeing a big difference, or?
I think the big difference is between like engineer and producer. And I'm definitely more of a producer. Like, if I had the opportunity just to stand there while a band was in the studio and I didn't have to set up mics or press record or edit anything, like, that would be my dream job.
Yeah.
If I could just help them with their songs and their performances and just be that extra guy, which is, I guess, just what a producer is, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
But, I'm an engineer by proxy. Like, I had to basically learn how to run my own studio and buy all the mics and the preamps and all that stuff just so I can actually run the business without having to pay someone to do it. Because, you know, there's no money in sharing money when you're not making a lot of money. So I had to kind of learn how to do that. But luckily, that was over the course of like 10 years, like even longer than that. I mean, I got my first recording stuff probably in 2003 and just kind of started messing around. But I learned so much about like the engineering side from Mark Mahalik, who's the drummer in my new band, The Apology Tour. He recorded and mixed like quite a few Swellers records, especially the early ones, and then had a hand in some of the later ones too. And I just learned a ton, like kind of mostly about like patience and just kind of being that helpful engineer and not that jerk who just keeps yelling at people to do it again. And that's one thing that I've learned from him was I think bands have a really comfortable time here and they don't get stressed out, which is such a good thing. I've had people, you know, recording in front of me that were like shaking. They were so nervous. And then after the first song, they were kind of just like, oh, okay, this is going to be cool. Like, it's going to be fine. So that's like a huge part. But yeah, as far as being a producer, we never worked with an actual producer until we did our record in 2011 called Good For Me. And that was Bill Stevenson and Jason Livermore at the Blasting Room. And Bill was in Black Flag and Descendants, which are like, you know, two of my favorite bands. So it was kind of like, oh my God, this is insane.
Same.
And we did pre-production. We did like 4 days of just sitting in the studio playing our songs. And Bill would chime in and be like, oh, why are you doing this? You should do this. And hey, rewrite this chorus. And hey, change this drum beat. And it kind of, it made me realize everything he was saying, like I totally agreed with, but I didn't know why I agreed with it or like that I agreed with it. But I was like, dude, I think there's just this language in music, especially like it's like producer language. It's almost like unwritten, unspoken rules.
Yeah.
Like, you know, obviously there's no rules in rock and roll. Do what you want to do. But sometimes there's things that your ear just would rather hear than what you're doing. So from that point on, I was just like, man, and you know, not only did I really love everything that he was putting down, I just like learned so much from Bill that when I started recording bands, like kind of more, I would say more full time. It was like between tours in 2011. You know, I was bringing a lot of that to the table, just kind of being like, hey guys, here's one thing you can do with your songs. This is why, this will sound better. Basically trimming the fat, you know, arrangements and stuff. And I think bands that come through my studio really benefit from that stuff. It can kind of take you from, you know, not that the bands that come here sound like local band talent show style, but it can take a band from there to like a pretty solid sounding band just by making a few tweaks. And every band learns from that, you know, like if they're like, oh God, we never wrote choruses before. Let's repeat this part twice. Now we have 2 choruses. This gives the kids something to sing and they'll come back to the show. And the next time they write a record, you know, they'll keep that in mind, even if they don't record with me. It's just like, you just kind of learn these little things. You kind of have this arsenal of like songwriting tips basically. But yeah, I just love it because I'm pretty confident in what I do, but I'm also learning from the bands that come through here.
Huh. I like that. Now, what has been one of your favorite things? I mean, what has been one of your favorite records that you happen to engineer since moving into engineering?
Oh man, lately has been kind of just like an onslaught of really awesome stuff. There's a band called Greet Death. They used to be called Pines, but they changed their name. They're a Michigan band. And they did a full length with me, and I think they're putting it out this summer finally. But they're just like a 3-piece. I don't want to say shoegaze, but they do stare at their pedal boards a lot. But like the dudes can sing, man. You know, like they've got awesome melodies and really great song structures and great tone. So that's just like one of my favorites. And also No Sleep Records just signed Hot Mulligan, and their EP, I did, I think, sometime last year. And they're hopefully going to come in pretty soon and start working on some more music with me. So those guys have been super helpful as being that kind of word of mouth band, where if I get an email from a band wanting to record with me, they're just kind of like, hey, we heard the Hot Mulligan record, we want to record with you now. And, you know, that's like the best kind of promotion you can get.
Oh, for sure.
And a band called Swordfish, they're also from Michigan. They just signed to Take This to Heart. And their record just kind of, it just like happened so, it's hard to explain. It might have been like the most organic sounding record that came from the studio, because they came in and did their thing. We made a couple tweaks, and then like those tweaks that we made, it was just like, oh man, like it sounds like it's this band's like third record. Like they've been around for a long time, but it's like their first thing ever. And then, you know, when they got picked up to a label, it's like, oh man, like this must have been something special. You know, you can kind of feel it when you're recording it. But yeah, just the Michigan stuff that I've been working on lately has been great. The scene's really good here. And then a band called Lights Over Bridgeport from Chicago. I've done like 3 of their EPs, and they're just like some of my best friends and just sounding better and better every single record. So it's like always exciting when they come back in.
Very cool. I like that. I mean, it's good. It's awesome to hear, like, you know, you're, like you said, you're from the Flint, Michigan area, and I'm from the Massachusetts area, and you know, like us, we both have that one thing in common, is we have a really good music scene as well.
Oh yeah.
And I remember hearing stories about when you guys would play over at the ICC Church in Massachusetts with a lot of bands like A Loss for Words, Transit. I used to see a lot of the pictures and stuff like that. I mean, when you were touring, now, like, what were some of your favorite cities that you happened to, you know, visit and get to play shows in? What were some of your favorites?
Man, I think at first, like the most unlikely cities kind of become like your second homes. So like I just remember it was like our third date on our first tour was Omaha, Nebraska, and we played a great show, and we partied with these kids, and they like stayed our friends for like the whole 10 years that we were on the road. Like we totally like grew up together, and we would see them like twice a year, you know, roll through Omaha. And it was just like, that is so strange, you know, like that we would have like these super good friends in this town that we never thought we would even visit. And then another place that was like Albuquerque, New Mexico. Just some awesome people there, always taking care of us. And then, you know, also New Bedford, Massachusetts, actually, like the South Coast. Like we were always doing hall shows and things down there.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, mostly, you know, because the Wilhelm Scream guys lived there, but we didn't ever play with them there. It was always with other bands. There's a band called Another Option. We used to play with those guys all the time. And I think they've moved on to like a bunch of other bands right now. Half-Hearted Hero. Mm-hmm. Those guys were a lot of fun to play with all the time. And I mean, they're still doing it and like better than ever, which is awesome. And I think once we got a little bit bigger and a little bit more settled and established, like when we can actually play in a city and have a booking agent like willingly book us, you know, places like New York, Chicago, Philly, Boston, LA, those are pretty much like all the places we played our final shows. Yeah. Because we were just like, well, we know we do well. They're big cities. They'll be decently well attended. So yeah, those were kind of our favorite spots to play, just because it felt like, I don't know, it was like you could kind of check off the bucket list if you had a good show in those places. Like I think our final Boston show sold out. I think, if I remember correct. I barely remember because I was just so freaked out that anyone was even there. You know, I was just kind of like, oh my God, this is crazy. But
I'm trying to think, where were you guys?
It was
Worcester Palladium?
It was like it was just, I want to say, north of Boston, in some weird like wedding hall. Like it was like a place, I don't even know if it still does shows, but
I'm trying to think. For your final shows, right?
Yeah, like we just did one
Not
up there.
Boston. Not the Sinclair.
No.
Sinclair?
If I saw the name, I would be like, oh yeah, that's it. But
not TT the Bears.
No. Yeah, this place was like seriously where they had like wedding banquets. Like, it was just like this big, wide, strange room. And all I remember about that day is, like, one, it being an awesome show, but two, like, I went to the YMCA across the way. Was it in Alston, maybe? I could be making this up.
Alston. No. You're not that far off, man.
Yeah, I'm trying to...
Alston would be the Sinclair, but you could also have the Middle East.
Yeah, because this was like a place where people are like, hey, I've never even heard of this. Like, I didn't know that they would even do shows here. So the fact that people came out was pretty cool. It's like, all right.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then, it was like I said, the bucket list thing. Like, we sold out the Chicago show and the Detroit show, which, we've never sold out a freaking phone booth in our lives. So being able to actually, like, pack a place was like, dude, okay. Like, we know it's the end of us, but at least we got to do that, and that is awesome. Which sucks, because then you break up, and you're like, oh, now we can't do that. Like, now we're done doing that. So it's like, I miss it, like, every single day. I'm just like, God damn it. Like, why did we step away? But, at the same time, I'm like, I'm so glad we did. Got to experience life. And I got a baby on the way, September 1st.
Oh, congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's crazy, man.
So, you gotta love life, though. I mean, it's great to hear that you're, you took a lot of, you're taking the positive, from everything and your experiences, and you are still creating music. A lot. I mean, right in the beginning, like I said, like felt like a retirement, but you're far from retired. You're more busier, just kind of doing your own thing.
Right. Yeah.
You're more busy now than ever. And it's amazing.
Like the term retirement, I actually really do like, which it almost sounds like it could be like a diss or something, but it's not. Like,
no.
I seriously was just like, I almost felt like I was retired for life. Like, after that much touring, I was so exhausted, like, just completely mentally and physically shot, that I was like, you know what? I don't have to do anything the rest of my life. Like, I put it all in. That was everything I had. But, after, like, a good year of living real life, it's kind of like, you kind of get the itch, but I know that I'll never do it to the extent that the Swellers did it ever again. Because, that's just not me anymore. You would have to pay me a lot of money to be away from home for more than, like, 3 days. Like, I just get so sad. And,
I don't blame
having
you,
2 dogs and, the wife and a kid on the way. It's definitely something that I would love to do some long weekends or, mini vacations here and there, playing music. But, yeah, I think for now we'll just keep it chill.
It's funny. It's funny because, like, like you were saying, it's like you spent the better half of your 20s on the road all the time, or either in a studio practicing. But now it's like these last 2 years have flown by, where it's like you're really. It sounds like you're really enjoying yourself, and that's a great thing to hear. A lot of I imagine, like, a lot of people who kind of step away from music or do any of that, it's tough, and I do understand that itch that you're talking about. So I have a lot of respect for it, man. I love it.
Oh, thanks, man.
So, like I do with a lot of my guests on the show, I love to play this game. It's usually it's pretty easy. You're stuck on a desert island. What album do you take with you?
Oh man, I honestly think, as weird as it sounds, I would take Meatloaf, Bad Outta Hell 2. As a kid, that was like my first record that I went and bought with my own money. I went to the CD store. I was like 6 years old, told the guy, like, I want the new Meatloaf record. And he looked at me like, what does a 6-year-old want with a Meatloaf album? But I don't know. I think it would have to be that one, just because it's really interesting to me inside and out. Like, I revisited it, like, when I was like 16 or something. I stopped listening to it forever, and then I kind of put it back on. And not only was it nostalgic, but, like, as a musician, I was like, oh my God, there's so much going on here. And the songwriting is so great. So I think that's just one of those records that I don't think I would get tired of, just, like, especially if I had headphones. There's so much going on. Like, I think that would be a fun one to have.
I like that. Now, as an artist and whatnot, who are some of your biggest like influences as a musician?
I would say as far as just kind of like overall songwriting and tones and stuff, Weezer was like really big for me. And then Tony Sly from No Use for a Name. I don't know what it is, if we just have a similar ear or if I just completely stole his melodies. I still don't know. But that was like a huge influence starting the Swellers too. And yeah, I kind of just, anything that's like big and melodic, and there's like these certain chords and changes and harmonies and things that you kind of gravitate to naturally. But like one of my all-time favorite bands is Nada Surf, and I got into them like, when they were really big on MTV. It's like 1996 or whatever, and I was like a little kid just like listening to the CD on my boombox every day, just like, oh my god, this is so cool. And like half that record I didn't even really get, like I didn't really like it. I was like, oh, okay, that's weird. Then like flash forward, it was actually Trevor from Wilhelm and Trevor from Black Dahlia Murder were two guys that were really into Nada Surf, and I was like, wait, they're still around? And they're like, oh yeah, dude. So they ended up like showing me a couple of their newer records, kind of in like the mid 2000s, and I was just like, oh my god, it's even better than the old stuff. So like that's one of those bands that's put out like 7 or 8 records now, and I love every single one of them. Just kind of chill melodic indie. It's like indie rock that's not pretentious. Like they're just writing great songs and not trying to be all moody. And I can really dig that about that band. But yeah, as far as like guitar playing, I think Nirvana is basically what made me pick up a guitar to play chords. And then a lot of like southern rock and blues artists are what got me to want to start playing solos and riff. I was like never like really a metal guy or anything. Yeah. So if you take the punk rock and mix it with some like some Lynyrd Skynyrd or Allman Brothers, that's kind of like how I started playing guitar, strangely enough. But yeah, I'd say all those parts kind of add up to my style.
I love it, dude. So yeah, man, that's all I have for you today. I really appreciate you being on my show today and taking the time out of your life and helping me out. I really appreciate it, brother.
Hey, no problem, man. Thanks for wanting to talk to an old, washed up, retired geezer.
Fuck that, man. I know that you and your new band are definitely gonna do some things, and I really can't wait to hear it.
Yeah, dude. If we figure out how to get amps big enough to recreate our sound, like, I'll let you know, because we're just like, oh man, I'm so excited. But I'm hoping we get to come out that way and play some shows. But
that'd be great.
Who knows? We'll see. But yeah, I appreciate this, man. Thank you.
No, thank you. I really appreciate you doing this. So
awesome. No problem.
All right. So that was Nick Diener. Did I get it right?
Yeah, that's right.
Nailed it. All right, there we go. That's Nick Diener from the Swellers, and definitely keep an ear out for him, man. He's doing big things, and it's great to hear that he's doing. And like normal, I'm gonna leave you guys with a little tune. The Swellers, one of their bigger songs that they ever came out with, and one of my personal favorites. I hope you all enjoy it. This is The Best I Ever Had by the Swellers. Take care until next week.
It was a young and English summer, a song that changed my mind. I heard it on the radio, and if everyone else heard this, it wouldn't be so sad. It was the best I ever had. It was the best I ever had. the best I ever had.